Imagine a powerful CEO, disguised as a humble guest at his company's Christmas party, uncovering shocking betrayals, hidden truths, and the strength of the human spirit. This story will leave you questioning loyalty, leadership, and second chances. Stay tuned, because the twists will blow your mind. Edo State was known for its vibrant culture, historic significance, and for being home to some of the most driven business leaders in Nigeria. Benedict Igbenedion, CEO of Benigbe Holdings, was one of those leaders. A visionary in every sense, Benedict had built his business empire from the ground up. His company was renowned for its integrity, outstanding performance, and strong community impact. With branch offices across Nigeria and even a few in neighboring African countries. But Benedict wasn't just proud of what he'd built. He was deeply committed to ensuring his business remained a place of fairness and opportunity. But recently, a cloud had settled over Benigbe Holdings. It was the holiday season, and while the rest of the company seemed full of cheer and optimism, one particular branch in Lagos was the subject of rumors that haunted Benedict. According to a few troubling whispers, there were incidents of corruption, manipulation, and a toxic work environment festering within one of the company's highest-performing branches. Benedict couldn't understand it. This particular branch, managed by his trusted protégé, Charles Eze, had always met its targets. It was almost hard to believe that something could be wrong, but a string of anonymous complaints, plummeting employee morale, and questionable performance metrics left him with an uneasy feeling. Despite his growing doubts, he knew that the festive season was approaching, and with it, the company's annual Christmas dinner party. This would be the perfect opportunity for him to dig deeper and see things firsthand, without drawing attention. Benedict didn't just want to be an observer, he needed to be invisible, to see the real workings of his Lagos branch up close. He was determined to get to the bottom of the issues that were threatening the values he held so dearly. Benedict didn't plan to walk into the Christmas party as himself. He wanted to go undercover. He called upon his assistant, Amaka, who'd been with him for years. Amaka was the only person he trusted with this plan. Amaka, I need to see for myself what's going on in Lagos, but I can't go as myself. We need a disguise. A convincing one, he told her one evening as they discussed the plan in his office. Amaka, ever resourceful and loyal, didn't blink. We'll make it happen, sir. How about a distant relative visiting from Edo State? Benedict nodded thoughtfully. Yes, perfect. An elderly uncle, maybe. A man who would blend in, quiet, and unassuming. Amaka quickly set to work. Within days, she had assembled a carefully crafted disguise, a traditional agbada, glasses with thick lenses, a graying beard, and a Yoruba cap that would obscure half his face. She even instructed Benedict to practice a slight limp and change his tone to a lower, slower pitch. Practice makes perfect, sir, she said with a smile as Benedict rehearsed his new persona in front of her. By the time they were done, he was no longer Benedict Igbenedion, the sharp-minded CEO. He was now Uncle Ben, a humble visitor attending the Christmas dinner on behalf of his nephew, who worked at the branch. With the disguise perfected, Benedict was ready to dive into the heart of his Lagos branch and uncover the truth. The evening of the Christmas dinner arrived, and Benedict, now fully in character as Uncle Ben, made his way to the rented event hall in Lagos. The hall was decorated with festive lights, ribbons, and a grand Christmas tree near the entrance. The air was thick with the sounds of laughter, conversations, and holiday music. Employees dressed in their finest attire mingled, sharing stories, laughing, and occasionally throwing nervous glances toward the branch manager, Charles Eze. As Benedict entered, he moved slowly, using his cane to add authenticity to his disguise. He greeted a few employees, who were polite but preoccupied. Some were talking in hushed voices, looking around as if afraid of being overheard. His eyes zeroed in on Charles, who stood at the center of a group of senior employees. Charles was a charismatic figure, impeccably dressed in a dark, expensive suit, laughing and patting his subordinates on the back. He appeared friendly on the surface, but Benedict noticed something unsettling in his demeanor. Charles's laughter was forced, his mannerisms a little too controlled, as though he was performing a role. Benedict made a mental note. Throughout the evening, Benedict engaged in quiet conversations with employees, posing as Uncle Ben, the harmless relative. It was during these interactions that he began to hear the real story of what was going on in the Lagos branch. One young woman, a junior accountant named Ifeoma, seemed especially wary as she talked to him. Benedict gently steered the conversation to her experience at the branch, feigning interest in her work. "It's a good place, Uncle Ben," she said hesitantly, glancing over her shoulder. "But it's hard sometimes. Not everyone gets the chance to show what they can do." "What do you mean, my dear?" Benedict asked, leaning closer. She hesitated, clearly weighing her words. "Well, there are certain people who always seem to get promotions, whether or not they deserve them, and there are others who work hard but are overlooked." Benedict nodded thoughtfully, encouraging her to go on. He learned from Ifeoma and others that favoritism ran rampant under Charles's leadership. Employees who curried favor with him received praise, benefits, and promotions, while others, no matter how hard they worked, remained stagnant. Rumors swirled about mysterious deductions from paychecks and missing bonuses. Staff morale was plummeting, with many feeling trapped under Charles's rule but unable to speak out for fear of retaliation. As the night continued, Benedict witnessed something truly disturbing. Charles was addressing the staff, thanking them for their hard work and dedication. But his words seemed hollow, his tone insincere. Then, in the middle of his speech, he singled out a young man named Aide, an intern who had been working tirelessly. "You see Aide here?" Charles said, his voice dripping with mockery. "Here's someone who still has a long way to go before he understands what excellence looks like." The crowd fell silent as Charles continued, ridiculing Aide's work in front of everyone. Aide stood there, humiliated, looking down at the floor. Benedict's blood boiled. He could see the fear and helplessness in Aide's eyes. Charles' display of power was not just unprofessional, it was cruel. Benedict knew that this was more than simple favoritism. There was a deeper problem. A culture of intimidation that kept employees in line, fearing for their jobs if they dared to speak up. Determined to gather more evidence, Benedict befriended a few of the employees who seemed to be on the fringes. He learned from them that Charles had been using company funds for personal expenses, and that he often claimed these expenses were for branch projects that never materialized. Late in the evening, Benedict approached Aide, the intern who'd been humiliated by Charles. Pulling him aside, he revealed, in confidence, that he was not who he appeared to be. He was, in fact, the CEO of the company, and he was here to help. Aide's eyes widened, and he took a shaky breath. "Mr. Igbenedian, I've been recording some of the things Charles says. I was too scared to report it, but I knew I needed evidence." He handed Benedict a few recordings he'd taken over the past weeks. Benedict listened to snippets of Charles talking about his special projects and even hinting at ways he manipulated payroll. His arrogance was palpable in the recordings, his disregard for company policy shockingly brazen. In the days following the Christmas dinner, Benedict stayed in Lagos, still in disguise, making discreet visits to the branch. He pored over files, emails, and accounting logs, confirming that Charles was running a large-scale embezzlement scheme. Funds were being siphoned into fake accounts, with Charles taking a hefty cut. It was even worse than Benedict had feared. One afternoon, while going through the office after hours, Benedict realized he'd been caught on one of the branch's security cameras. Charles would know he'd been snooping around. A sense of dread filled him, but he steeled himself, knowing he had the evidence needed to confront Charles. The next morning, he called Charles into a private meeting. Charles walked in, his face a mask of confidence, but Benedict sensed a flicker of nervousness in his eyes. Benedict wasted no time. He removed his glasses and false beard, revealing his true identity. Charles's face turned pale, his confident smile vanishing. "You, Mr. Igbenedian?" he stammered. "Yes, Charles," Benedict replied, his voice cold. "I know everything. The corruption, the favoritism, the funds you've stolen from the company, and the way you've treated the people who trusted you." Charles' face twisted with desperation as he tried to defend himself, claiming he'd done it for the good of the branch. But Benedict cut him off, unimpressed by his excuses. "Your time here is over," Benedict said with finality. The fallout was swift. Charles was removed from his position, and the company's legal team took over, ensuring he would face the consequences of his actions. Benedict knew that to repair the damage done to this branch, he needed to regain the trust of his employees. After dismissing Charles, he called a meeting with the entire Lagos branch. Staff gathered, unsure of what to expect, some looking tense and wary. Benedict stood at the front, still dressed in the agbada and traditional Yoruba cap from his undercover role, a choice he made deliberately. He wanted to show them that he had seen everything, not as their distant CEO, but as one of them. Benedict cleared his throat, the room falling silent. "I am deeply sorry," he began, his voice steady, but filled with emotion. "I apologize that I allowed such an environment to develop here. Benig B Holdings was founded on values of integrity, fairness, and respect. But somewhere along the way, we lost sight of that here in Lagos." He paused, scanning the faces before him. He saw Aide, the humiliated intern, watching with a mixture of hope and relief. He saw Ifeoma, the accountant who had bravely spoken out. And he saw many others who had silently endured under Charles's rule. "I want each of you to know that your hard work has not gone unnoticed," he continued. "From this day forward, I'm personally committed to restoring the values that this branch deserves. I want Benigby Holdings to be a place where you feel safe, where you can grow, and where your efforts are recognized." He took a deep breath, then made a surprising announcement. "For the next few months, I will be based here in Lagos, working directly with all of you to implement these changes." The room erupted into murmurs. It was unheard of for a CEO to relocate temporarily, to personally oversee a branch. Benedict's announcement was both unexpected and deeply reassuring to the staff. They understood that he was serious about rebuilding their trust. Benedict spent the next several months in Lagos, ensuring that every corner of the branch was restructured. He worked closely with HR to establish a transparent, merit-based promotion system. He brought in external auditors to investigate the financial mismanagement and set up channels for employees to report grievances without fear of retaliation. New managers were carefully selected for their integrity and commitment to the company's values. One of Benedict's first actions was to promote Aide, the intern who had bravely recorded evidence against Charles, to a full-time position. Benedict also ensured Ifeoma received the overdue promotion she deserved, placing her in a role where her talents could truly shine. In his daily interactions with the team, Benedict showed that he wasn't just their CEO, he was their ally. He listened to their ideas, sought their feedback, and encouraged a culture of openness that had been stifled under Charles. Slowly, the morale at the branch began to shift. Employees who had once been fearful were now more confident, speaking up and taking pride in their work. One afternoon, Benedict called Aide into his office. "Aide," he began, smiling warmly, "I want to thank you for your courage. Without you, I wouldn't have known the full extent of what was happening here." Aide, humbled, simply nodded. "Thank you, sir. I only wanted what was fair. Fairness is exactly what we're going to bring back to Benib Holdings," Benedict said, placing a hand on the young man's shoulder. "And it's people like you who are going to help me do it." News of Benedict's hands-on approach quickly spread throughout the company. Employees in other branches heard about how the CEO had gone undercover to root out corruption, and morale lifted company-wide. Employees who had been disillusioned felt a renewed sense of purpose, realizing that Ben-Igby Holdings truly valued its workforce. Investors and clients also took note of the transformation. Benedict's actions reinforced the reputation of Ben-Igby Holdings as a company of integrity, and new contracts began to pour in. The Lagos branch, once a source of concern, soon became the company's most promising team, driven by the hard work and dedication of employees who were finally recognized and empowered. Over time, Ben-Igby Holdings implemented Benedict's reforms across all branches, introducing clear ethical guidelines and accountability measures. Benedict even created an anonymous feedback system for employees to report any concerns directly to senior management, ensuring the issues he'd faced in Lagos would never happen again. A year after the Christmas dinner that had sparked Benedict's investigation, the Lagos branch held another holiday party. This time, it was full of genuine celebration, free from fear and favoritism. Benedict, now back in Edo State, received photos and messages from his staff in Lagos, thanking him for the transformation he had brought to their lives. Sitting in his office, Benedict reflected on the journey. He knew that real success went far beyond profit. It was built on trust, integrity, and a commitment to the people who formed the backbone of his company. He had learned firsthand that leadership required vigilance and a willingness to face uncomfortable truths. And most importantly, he had learned that the true measure of a CEO was the respect he commanded not just from the boardroom, but from every level of his company. As he looked out the window, Benedict felt a renewed sense of purpose. He knew there would be challenges ahead, but he also knew that Ben-Igby Holdings was stronger than ever. And as long as he remained true to his values, there was no limit to what he and his company could achieve. Benedict's phone buzzed with a message from Aide, now a respected team leader in Lagos. "Thank you, sir, for everything. You showed us what a real leader looks like." With a quiet smile, Benedict typed his reply. "It's my honor. Keep making me proud." And as he pressed send, he knew that he was not only leading a company, he was shaping a legacy. Benedict felt a deep sense of fulfillment as he set his phone down. He realized that his journey through the Lagos branch had changed him as much as it had his employees. It had reminded him why he had started Ben-Igby Holdings in the first place, to create opportunities, foster growth, and build an environment where people could thrive without fear or favoritism. As he leaned back in his chair, looking out over the cityscape, Benedict thought about the journey that lay ahead. He knew he would carry the lessons of this experience with him, using them to guide the company through whatever challenges the future might bring. His undercover investigation had not only saved the branch, but had also strengthened his resolve to be the kind of leader who inspired, supported, and protected those under his care. With that renewed purpose in mind, Benedict took a deep breath and returned to his work, knowing that his actions had sparked a new era for Ben-Igby Holdings. His story had become an example for his employees, a reminder that courage, integrity, and vigilance would always win out in the end. And so, Benigb Holdings continued to grow, rooted in the values Benedict had fought so hard to uphold, with a leader who was no longer just a distant CEO, but a trusted guardian of their shared vision. In the hearts of his employees, Benedict wasn't just the man at the top. He was a champion of fairness, a protector of dreams, and most of all, a leader they could believe in. The legacy of Benedict Igbinedion would live on not just in the numbers on a balance sheet, but in the loyalty and respect of those he had lifted up along the way. Thank you for watching this powerful story of redemption and transformation. If this story inspired you, please don't keep it to yourself. Subscribe, hit that like button, share it with your friends, and let us know your thoughts in the comments below. To see more captivating stories like this, please don't forget to subscribe to the channel. Turn on your notifications so you never miss a tales. Let's spread the message of hope and kindness together this season.